Paradise Island number 1, Artemis of Bana Migdal. The island had not forgotten the sky that tried to look inside it. Even after the tear in reality had sealed itself, Themyscira remained changed in subtle ways. The forests grew quieter at night, the waves struck the coastline with more rhythm, as if counting time. And deep beneath the earth, where the island's ancient system slept, something continued to hum. Low, patient, waiting. The Kangas still ran the great pulse run, but their movements were tighter now, more disciplined, like warriors who had learned the cost of distraction. They no longer treated the horizon as empty. They treated it as a boundary that could be crossed. And in the center of this changing world, a different kind of story was beginning. Her name was Artemis. She was not born on the sacred shores of Themyscira, but among a fractured offshoot of Amazon culture known as the Bana Migdal Amazons. Artemis of Bana Migdal. Bana Migdal Amazons. Bana Migdal was not paradise. It was survival. Where Themyscira was shaped by harmony, Bana Migdal was shaped by endurance. Its people lived through ruins of ancient civilizations, desert winds, and constant conflict with the outside world. They did not speak of peace as a birthright. They spoke of it as something stolen and possibly unrecoverable. Artemis grew up learning one truth above all others. Strength was not a gift. It was currency. And she intended to be rich. Even as a child, she was unlike the others. While other young warriors trained in groups, Artemis trained alone, striking stone pillars until her knuckles bled and her arms refused to lift. When she fell, she did not cry. She studied the ground, analyzing why it defeated her. The elders of Bana Migdal saw potential in her, but also danger. Because Artemis did not just want to survive Bana Migdal, she wanted to surpass it. Years later, when whispers spread of a hidden island untouched by war, Paradise Island itself, Artemis did not believe in myths. But she did believe in opportunity. If there existed a place where Amazons lived without hunger, without constant battle, without collapse, then it was either a lie or a challenge. And Artemis always accepted challenges. The journey to Themyscira was not meant to be possible for outsiders. The ocean rejected maps. Storms formed where they should not. Ships turned back without explanation. The island was not hidden by distance. It was hidden by will. But Artemis did not arrive by ship. She arrived by force of persistence. Following fractured legends, stolen scrolls, and half-remembered stories from wandering seers, she crossed deserts, cliffs, and cursed waters until she reached the boundary where reality itself began to feel uncertain. And there, she did something no Bana Migdal warrior had done before. She stepped forward anyway. The sea did not swallow her. The sky did not strike her down. Instead, the world shifted, and Themyscira accepted her, not as a guest, but as a test. When Artemis first set foot on the island, she expected warriors. She expected walls. She expected resistance. What she did not expect was silence. The forest greeted her without hostility. The air felt clean, almost aware. Even the wind seemed to adjust its path around her, as if observing her rather than opposing her. And then she saw them. The Kangas. A distant herd moved across the plains, massive shapes bounding in synchronized rhythm. They were not fleeing her. They were not approaching her either. They were simply moving as if her presence was irrelevant to their purpose. That offended her more than hostility would have. Artemis followed them. For hours, she tracked their movement across terrain that seemed to reshape itself around their passage. She noticed something strange. Where the Kangas landed, the earth did not crack or suffer impact. It responded, almost gently, as if absorbing their weight like memory. She began to understand something uncomfortable. This island was not wild. It was coordinated. And she was the variable. By the time Artemis reached the Central Valley, the Kangas had already stopped moving. Thousands of them stood still, forming a vast circle around something she could not yet see. Their heads were raised slightly, their bodies tense, as if holding back motion rather than preparing it. And at the center of that circle stood a single figure, a massive storm-stride Kanga elder known as Varuk the Groundbreaker. Artemis did not know his name yet, but she recognized leadership when she saw it. She stepped forward. The ground beneath her boots immediately changed texture, becoming firmer, as if acknowledging her presence. Varuk turned his head slowly toward her, and for a moment, nothing moved. Then, through vibration in the soil and air, she felt a message form, not spoken in language, but translated into understanding. "You are not from the running island," the presence said. Artemis did not hesitate. "I am from Bana Migdal," she replied, "and I am here to see what makes you stronger than us." A ripple moved through the Kangas. Not fear, interest. For the first time since her arrival, the herd shifted position slightly, adjusting their circle so she was included within its edge rather than outside it. She had been accepted into observation, not membership, evaluation. Over the following days, Artemis studied the Kangas the way she studied opponents. She watched their movement patterns, their group coordination, their reaction to environmental changes. She noticed they did not fight for dominance among themselves. Instead, they distributed roles naturally. Leaders emerged by necessity, not conflict. She tested them once. A controlled strike against a weakened cliffside near their path. The impact should have caused a collapse. Instead, the Kangas reacted instantly, redirecting their movement in a formation that absorbed the vibration and stabilized the rock through sheer coordinated force. The cliff did not fall. It healed. Artemis realized then that the Kangas were not just adapted to Themyscira, they were maintaining it, and she began to understand why the island had accepted her arrival without destruction. It was not because she was harmless, it was because she was being measured. On the seventh day, Varuk approached her. This time, he did not speak in resonance alone. He allowed fragments of structured thought to form between them, as if the island itself was translating intent. "You carry violence without chaos," the Kanga elder observed. "I carry discipline," Artemis corrected. "Those are not the same," Varuk replied. "They are when you survive long enough." That answer did not end the conversation. It deepened it, because Artemis of Bana Migdal was not like the Amazons of this island. She did not believe strength was inherited from harmony. She believed it was carved from suffering, and the Kangas had never been shaped by suffering the way she understood it. Yet they did not reject her. They studied her, as if she were another form of survival. On the final night of her early arrival, Artemis stood alone at the edge of the Central Valley while the Kangas performed the Great Pulse Run once again. This time, she did not follow them. She watched. And as thousands of bodies moved in synchronized motion across the land, she realized something that unsettled her more than any battle ever had. She was not witnessing animals running. She was witnessing an ecosystem thinking. And for the first time since leaving Bana Migdal, Artemis questioned not whether she belonged here, but whether she could ever become part of something that did not need to fight to exist. Above her, the sky remained quiet. But somewhere beyond it, she remembered the tear that had once opened the world, and she wondered if it was truly gone, or simply waiting for something strong enough to notice it again. Characters, places, and group species characters. Artemis of Bana Migdal, Artemis of Bana Migdal, Varuk the Groundbreaker, Kanga Elder. Places, Themyscira, Paradise Island, Themyscira, Bana Migdal, Central Valley of Themyscira, Storm Coastline, Deep Fern Forest. Groups, species, Kangas, alien species native to Themyscira, Hopsworn clans, Kanga social structure, Amazons of Themyscira, Amazons of Themyscira, Bana Migdal Amazons, Bana Migdal Amazons.
Yeah.
Now Paradise Island number 2, Nubia. The island had begun to change its memory of strangers. Where once Themyscira responded to outsiders as unpredictable variables, it now reacted with something closer to recognition. Slow, cautious acceptance, as if the island itself was learning that not all arrivals were intrusions. The Kangas felt it first. Their great pulse run shifted pattern again, not breaking this time, but widening. Routes extending farther into regions they had never touched before, as if the island was quietly expanding its own understanding of itself. And deep within the hidden sanctuaries of Themyscira, something long dormant stirred in response to a presence that did not arrive by force or challenge, but by destiny. Her name was Nubia. Nubia, she did not arrive like Artemis, driven by ambition and trial. She did not arrive like a conqueror. She arrived like a memory returning to its original body. No one saw her cross the boundary. There was no storm, no rupture in the sky, no warning from the sea. One moment, the edge of the island was undisturbed. The next, she stood within it, kneeling slightly as if she had simply finished a long journey that began long before she could remember. The air around her felt heavier, not oppressive, but ancient. The forest animals did not scatter. Even the wind seemed to pause before moving again, as though acknowledging rank it had forgotten how to speak of. And the Kangas, once so sensitive to all unfamiliar presences, did not react with alarm. They stopped, not in fear, in recognition. Nubia rose slowly, her eyes scanning the horizon with the calm precision of someone who had seen too many worlds fracture under misunderstanding. Her presence was not loud. It did not demand attention. It commanded alignment. She did not ask where she was. She already knew. Themyscira, Paradise Island, a place spoken of in fragments among hidden circles of warriors and lost histories, a place where Amazons lived apart from mankind, untouched by the corruption of war beyond their shores. But Nubia understood something others did not. No place is untouched, only waiting. The Kangas appeared at the edge of the clearing minutes later. They did not surround her. They formed a half circle, a respectful distance. Among them was movement she had never seen documented in any scroll or oral tradition. Their fur patterns shifted in synchronized waves, not chaotic, but structured, like language. They were communicating, and they were speaking about her. A massive Stormstride Kanga stepped forward, heavier than any Nubia had seen, his body marked with deep scars that were not wounds, but records of time. The ground beneath him responded differently, stabilizing rather than yielding. He was an elder, not Varuk, but another of equal weight. His name was Orun of the Tidestride line. Orun did not speak aloud. He did not need to. The island translated. "You are not new," the message formed in Nubia's mind. Nubia tilted her head slightly. "And yet I have never been here." A pause. Then the Kangas responded in a way that made the air itself feel heavier. "You have been here in structure, not in body." That statement lingered between them like a truth that refused to fully explain itself. As Nubia moved deeper into Themyscira, she noticed something subtle that others might have missed. The island was not reacting to her. It was adjusting around her. Paths through the forest subtly aligned to her movement. Water flows curved gently to avoid interrupting her stride. Even the distant Kangas altered their routes, not to avoid her, but to remain in patterns that acknowledged her presence as part of their system. It was not deference. It was calibration. And Nubia understood immediately what that meant. She was not being evaluated as a threat. She was being measured as a stabilizer. By the time she reached the Central Valley, Artemis was already there. The two stood at opposite edges of the Kangas' formation, one shaped by survival, one shaped by destiny. Between them, thousands of Kangas formed the Great Pulse Run once again, their movement flowing like a living equation written across the land. Artemis studied Nubia with guarded intensity. Nubia studied the island. Neither spoke first, because both understood something important. This was not a meeting arranged by chance. This was alignment of forces Themyscira had been preparing for. Varuk the Groundbreaker emerged from the shifting herd. This time, the Elder Kanga did something unprecedented. He addressed them both at once. "You are different answers to the same question." The island translated through him. Artemis narrowed her eyes. "What question?" Nubia answered instead, her voice steady. "What does strength become when it is no longer forced to prove itself?" Silence moved through the Kangas like wind through tall grass. For the first time since Artemis arrived, she did not respond immediately. because that question was not something she had been trained to answer. It was something she had been trained to ignore. The Great Pulse Run changed direction, not randomly, not instinctively, intentionally. The Kangas formed a spiraling formation around the Central Valley, creating a vast rotating pattern that now included both women at its core. The ground beneath them vibrated with coordinated energy, as if the island itself was rewriting its own rhythm. And then something unexpected happened. The skybound Kangas returned. They descended from above without warning, breaking through cloud cover in silent arcs. Their once translucent forms had stabilized, their patterns returning to clarity. They circled the valley once, then landed. But they did not join the run. They observed, as if confirming something unseen. Nubia stepped forward first, not toward Artemis, toward the center. "The island remembers me," she said. Artemis frowned. "That's impossible. You weren't here before." Nubia glanced toward the horizon. Not in time, in structure. Varroc's presence deepened. "Some who come here do not arrive," the Kanga elder conveyed. "They return." That statement shifted everything. Artemis felt it before she understood it. A subtle imbalance in how she perceived Nubia. Not foreignness, but familiarity that had no origin point. As if Themyscira itself had seen her shape before. And was now correcting a missing piece. That night, the island did something it had not done since the Sky Tear incident. It dreamt while awake. The Kangas gathered not in motion, but in still formation across every region of Themyscira. The Amazons, sensing the shift, remained within their settlements, watching as faint, luminous patterns appeared beneath the soil, echoes of pathways older than recorded history. Nubia stood at the center of it all. And for a brief moment, she closed her eyes. When she did, the island responded. Not with sound, but with memory. Visions that were not hers and yet were not Chuzur, showing fragments of a forgotten alignment between land, guardian species, and something that once existed before separation. Artemis witnessed only a fraction of it, but it was enough to unsettle her understanding of what Themyscira was, because it was no longer just an island. It was a system remembering its missing components, and Nubia was one of them. When the visions ended, Nubia opened her eyes. She looked at Artemis, and for the first time, her expression softened, not in weakness, but in recognition. "You are not what this place expects," Nubia said. Artemis crossed her arms. "And you are?" Nubia turned toward the horizon where the sea met the impossible boundary of the island. "I am what it does not need to explain." Above them, the sky remained calm. But beneath it, the Kangas resumed movement, not the Great Pulse Run, but something new. A pattern with 3 centers: Artemis, Nubia, and the island itself. Characters, places, and group species. Characters: Nubia. Nubia, Artemis of Bana Migdal. Artemis of Bana Migdal, Varroc the Groundbreaker, Orin of the Tidestride Line, Skybound Kangas, returning variant group. Places: Themyscira, Central Valley of Themyscira, Deep Fern Forest, Storm Coastline, Bana Migdal. Bana Migdal group species: Kangas, alien species of Themyscira, Hopsworn, clans, Amazons of Themyscira. Amazons of Themyscira, Bana Migdal Amazons. Bana Migdal Amazons.
Dun, 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 dun.
Paradise Island number 3, the God of War and the Fall of Hercules. Long before the world above would learn the name Wonder Woman, before the outside world even agreed on what gods truly were, Themyscira was already a sealed contradiction, an island of peace guarded by war, a sanctuary maintained by warriors who had learned that peace without strength was only temporary. Themyscira did not begin as a prison, but it would be Paradise Island number 3, the God of War and the Fall of Hercules. Long before the world above would learn the name Wonder Woman, before the outside world even agreed on what gods truly were, Themyscira was already a sealed contradiction, an island of peace guarded by war, a sanctuary maintained by warriors who had learned that peace without strength was only temporary. Themyscira did not begin as a prison, but it would become one. Paradise Island number 3, the God of War and the Fall of Hercules. Long before the world above would learn the name Wonder Woman, before the outside world even agreed on what gods truly were, Themyscira was already a sealed contradiction, an island of peace guarded by war, a sanctuary maintained by warriors who had learned that peace without strength was only temporary. Themyscira did not begin as a prison, but it would become one, because there are forces. Paradise Island number 3, the God of War and the Fall of Hercules. Long before the world above would learn the name Wonder Woman, before the outside world even agreed on what gods truly were, Themyscira was already a sealed contradiction, an island of peace guarded by war, a sanctuary maintained by warriors who had learned that peace without strength was only temporary. Themyscira did not begin as a prison, but it would become one. Because there are forces in existence that do not respect borders, even divine ones, and among them walked the god who carried conflict like breath, Ares. Ares. It began with a fracture in the world beyond the sea, not the same Tyr that had once observed the island from above, but something older, something that did not need technology or cosmic probing. It was simply attention turned sharp. Ares had been wandering the edges of mortal wars for centuries, growing weaker as humanity began to interpret conflict in new ways, strategy replacing instinct, unity replacing chaos. The god of war was no longer fed by pure destruction alone, and so he turned his gaze towards something purer, an untouched world, an island that had never known global war, a place where conflict was controlled, disciplined, almost sacred. Themyscira. To Ares, it was not paradise. It was a stolen battlefield, and he intended to reclaim it. The first sign of his arrival was not fire or thunder. It was silence. Across the island, the Kangas stopped moving at once. The great pulse run collapsed mid-pattern, thousands of bodies freezing in unnatural synchronization. Their tails stiffened. Their eyes shifted upward. They had felt gods before in distant memory echoes embedded in the island's ancient structure. But this presence was not distant. It was descending. The Amazons of Themyscira gathered without command. Their instincts had been trained for centuries to recognize imbalance in the world. But this was not imbalance. This was intent. From the storm line above the sea, the sky darkened into a rotating crimson spiral. The ocean below it did not crash. It lifted slightly, as if gravity itself was reconsidering its loyalty. And then Ares stepped through. He did not land. He arrived as if the world adjusted around him to make space. Armor shaped like ancient war memories clung to his form, not metal forged, but concepts hardened into structure. His presence alone made distant echoes of conflict ripple through the island's wildlife. Even the Kangas felt it, and for the first time in their recorded existence, they did not move. They waited. Ares walked the shoreline of Themyscira as if it belonged to him already. "I smell restraint," he said quietly. "So much restraint." He smiled. "That can be corrected." The Amazons did not meet him immediately. Instead, they observed. And in that observation, something else was moving through the island, something deeper than either Amazon or God. The Kangas began to reposition, not fleeing, forming. The Stormstride clan moved toward the coastlines. The Deep Fern clan spread through the forests like shadowed intelligence. The Sunbat clan occupied the open plains. And beneath them all, the skybound Kangas began to ascend into low atmospheric arcs, circling the island's perimeter like living satellites. The island was preparing. Not for war, for containment. Ares felt it immediately. "You think structure can bind war?" he said aloud, amused, and then he laughed. The sound cracked stone. "I am war." The sky tore open again, but not like before. This tear was controlled, directed. A second force descended through it, not a god of war. But something worse for war itself. Strength without chaos. Hercules. Hercules. He landed between Ares and the heart of the island with enough force to split the shoreline, but the island did not fracture. It absorbed. The Kangas shifted instantly, stabilizing the land through synchronized movement that redirected seismic force into harmless dispersion. Ares turned his head slightly. "Oh," he said, "a tool of Olympus." Hercules narrowed his eyes. "Ares, you're not welcome here." Ares smiled wider. "Neither are you." What followed was not a battle of destruction. It was a battle of ideology made physical. Hercules struck first. Force meant to end conflict quickly, decisively. Each blow carried divine weight, enough to break mountains elsewhere in the world. But Themyscira did not behave like elsewhere. The Kangas responded to every impact before it completed. Their movements absorbed, redirected, and redistributed force across the island's natural structure. Forests bent without breaking, cliffs shifted without collapsing. The ground itself became an active participant in the fight. Ares noticed and became interested. "You've trained this place," Ares said, watching the Kangas move like a single organism. "How long did it take to turn land into obedience?" "No one trained it," Hercules replied. "It grew this way." Ares laughed again. "Nothing grows like this." Then Ares moved, not toward Hercules, toward the island. And in that moment, everything changed. Because Ares was no longer fighting a demigod. He was testing a system. The Kangas reacted instantly, forming a continent-wide counterpattern, the Great Pulse Run reborn under emergency structure. Every clan moved in perfect synchronization, not for migration, but for resistance. The island itself responded beneath them. Ancient energy channels activated under Themyscira's surface, lines that mirrored the Kangas movement like a biological nervous system waking up. Ares stopped. For the first time, he felt it. The island was not passive. It was alive in coordination. Hercules saw his opening and struck again. This time, Ares did not fully defend. He absorbed the impact, sliding back across stone, laughing softly. "You misunderstand something," Ares said, rising slowly. "This island does not belong to you." He turned toward Hercules. "It belongs to war that has learned patience." The fight escalated. Hercules unleashed full divine strength, each blow rewriting terrain. Ares countered with war-born instinct, turning every strike into escalation. The coastline shattered into rising formations that the Kangas immediately stabilized mid-collapse. But the more they fought, the clearer something became. Ares was not trying to win. He was trying to awaken something, and the island was responding. Deep beneath Themyscira, something ancient stirred fully awake for the first time since the Sky Tear incident. Not a weapon, a containment system, built not by gods alone, but by the combined legacy of every force that had ever tried to protect the island. The Kangas' synchronized movement reached its apex, and for a brief moment, the entire island moved as one organism. Ares paused mid-motion. "So that's what you are," he whispered. Hercules landed beside him, breathing heavily. "It's over, Ares." Ares looked at him. "No," he said calmly. Then he raised his hand and let war itself collapse inward. But instead of explosion, there was absorption. The island responded instantly. The Kangas converged. The skybound formation closed. The land beneath Ares and Hercules turned into a structured gravitational lock. Not shackles of metal, but of coordinated motion, pressure, and living geography. Ares struggled, then smiled. "I see it now." And for the first time in recorded myth, the god of war was not defeated by force. He was understood, and understanding is far more dangerous than violence. The Kangas completed the final phase of the containment pattern. Ares did not fall. He was sealed. Not beneath stone, not within chains, but within Themyscira itself, bound into the island's living structure, where war could exist but never escape. Hercules stepped back as the energy stabilized. "You're imprisoned here," he said. Ares looked around him at the living island, the Kangas still moving in faint residual synchronization. "No," Ares replied quietly, "I'm integrated." Hercules was not imprisoned, but he was no longer untouched. The island had recorded him, measured him, and accepted that even strength of Olympus could not be ignored. When he finally left Themyscira, he did so under watch, not of gods, but of something older. The Kangas, and the island that now understood how to hold a god in place without ever breaking him. And so Ares remained, not chained, not buried, but living beneath the surface of Paradise Island, forever contained within a world that had learned how to turn movement into prison. And Themyscira learned something else that day. Even gods of war can be stopped, not by ending conflict, but by controlling its rhythm. Characters, places, and group species. Characters: Ares, Hercules, Kangas, collective intelligence presence in the island system. Places: Themyscira, shoreline of Themyscira, central valley of Themyscira, storm coastlines, deep fern forest group species. Kangas, alien species of Themyscira, Hopsworn, clans, Amazons of Themyscira. Amazons of Themyscira, Olympian gods. Olympian gods.